Hey everyone, my name is Casey Giovinco. I am the author of Garbed in Green, Gay Witchcraft, and The Male Mysteries. Welcome to my first video of 2019, and thank you for supporting me. So, back in November, I did a Thanksgiving Day video where I told gay men who were following me that I understood that this was a very difficult time of year. I said that the holidays are statistically the period of time where the most number of gay men commit suicide, and that there's a disproportionate number of suicides that are gay men than anybody else at that time of year, and that I understood their struggle and their strife. And so, after I posted that video on my Facebook page, many people reached out to me and told me what it meant to them. Now, I had already intended to do these videos in the beginning of the year because I wanted to give you guys a chance to know me better and not just buy my book, but actually get to know me. But after hearing from the men who watched my video and improved their life because of it, I knew that these videos were more than just fun for me. I knew that I needed to do them. I knew that I needed to give you guys a realistic glimpse into my life because what you're struggling with, I'm struggling with too. And I don't think that in our modern, waspy, Protestant work ethic environment, anybody ever talks about what they're bothered by or what's happening to them. Everybody posts these wonderful things on Facebook that make their lives look like movies, but so few people are actually living like that. And more to the point, most of us are struggling just to figure out where we fit in the world. But it seems taboo to even say that. So here's the thing, I'm going to say the taboo thing. I'm going to say the shit nobody else wants to say. And I'm going to figure out what the hell is going on with gay dating and with the reason that we're all so miserable about it. And then I'm going to try to work our way through it. So, like I said, I'm going to lay myself bare before you and I'm going to show you what I'm going through. And I'm not going to like Facebook gay famous this. I'm going to show you the real struggle and what I've really been through. And then hopefully, I'll find some healing and maybe you guys can find some wisdom. So, back in October, I did a healing ritual with Gala at our Grand Coven for myself to overcome my sexual and emotional abuse. Because as a survivor of rape from the gay community, sometimes I struggle with my feelings of bitterness and anger towards gay men. And when I go on apps like Grindr or Scruff or Hornet or Adam for Adam or whatever, I couldn't go on for days talking about these apps. When I go on these apps, that anger and that frustration and that guilt and shame and all of those negative emotions boil up to the surface again. Because, and I'm not saying anything about hookup culture here, I'm saying we don't act well on those apps. And nobody's going to tell you that we do. It is probably the worst place we are, or the worst place for looking for love. And yet it's the only place that many people have available to them. And so I go through this intense struggle trying to figure out a way around that. So, anyway, after my healing ritual in October, I enrolled in a continuing educational unit for my philosophical consulting practice, a relationship coaching course. And I went in with the goal of fixing my own damage and finding a way to help gay men find the love they want. Because I don't think enough people make us their target market that it doesn't become underwear sales and digmatization. So I'm going to try to do what I wish other people would have done. And I'm going to let you watch me do it. So, the beginning of that was my New Year's resolution in January, where I said that I was going to release the romantic idea that there is a Prince Charming or one true soulmate. And let me tell you, I struggled. I struggled with this because ever since I was a little gaby and I came out of my closet, all I wanted was a husband. And I wanted to be in this romantic situation. So now, having to give that up in order to heal has been a struggle for me. And it's one of the reasons why this first video took so long. When it came up in my class that we had to let go of that desire or we were never going to be successful helping people overcome their relationship baggage, I almost quit the class. I almost quit the class because so much has been taken from me in relationships in the first place. Why should I have to also lose the romance? But I held firm to my belief and I held firm to my commitment to take the course, and I held the two opposing thoughts at one time until the course began to make sense to me. And one of the things that the course said that was so fascinating is that this in love feeling was an evolutionary tool and nothing more. And I'll get back to that because that is what saved the class for me. So, my New Year's resolution about giving up Prince Charming and the idea of one soulmate. There's a lot that went into that, and I struggled with so much of that as I was taking this class and refining my beliefs and my understanding of love and relationships and gay men and all of these things over this last 2 or 3 months. So, hidden behind the words of my resolution are 3 concepts that I didn't talk about. The first is that I'm going to give up seeking to please other gay men. Because in truth, it's not helping anybody anyway. They're not happier. I'm not happier. Nobody's winding up in relationships or sexual experiences that they're happy about. It just feels like a futile effort that is actually a detour on the right path or away from the right path. So that doesn't mean I'm going to be extreme about it. Like, I'm not going to purposely ignore people or try to make their lives miserable. I'm not going to do what I want and fuck all. But at the same time, I'm not going to go out of my way to please people to my own detriment because it's not healthy for anybody. So that's one. 2, I started to think about some past boyfriends. And one of the boyfriends stood out in particular, and I won't mention his name because he's actually a real sweetheart despite what I'm about to tell you. And I still have him in my life and I still love him. But back when we were dating, way back in the day, he said to me, "You know, Casey, nobody is ever going to buy the car that they don't get to test drive it first." And he was like snarky like that, which is why I mimicked him. So I was not happy about that. In fact, I didn't talk to him for 6 months. It kind of like ruined any process of a relationship that we might have had with each other. But I was real mad about it. And to this day, I'm not happy about it. But now I look at it and I go, nope, we're not going to do that. Here's what we're going to do instead. I'm not a car. I'm not some inanimate object that you get to decide makes your life more convenient or easier or more enjoyable. I'm a person. And I have rights and I have feelings and I count. And so I'm not going to let people use me like a car. or an inanimate object. Now, I don't think that means I'm not going to hook up. I mean, the reality of gay dating, I hate to say this, is if you're not having sex, you're probably not dating. But I'm going to make a strategic change. And the strategic change that I'm going to make is no indiscriminate hookups. There has to be some kind of a connection. It doesn't have to be love, it doesn't have to be romance, it doesn't have to be anything in particular. We just have to genuinely like each other as people more than just as bodies. And if I can achieve that level of, let's call it intimacy, even though that's a 4-letter word for us, if I can achieve that level of intimacy with people I meet off of these apps, I'll give them a chance. And if I can't, right? So the last bit is that I'm a very healthy person as much as I try to be. And, I struggle with going to the gym sometimes when it's cold or rainy or I'm tired. And so I'm going to make it a point to do that. I'm going to make it a point to go to the gym on a regular, consistent basis, 3 to 5 times a week. And especially when I'm feeling frustrated sexually or socially by gay men. And I'm going to work that aggression out at the gym because it's a healthy physical expression that will alleviate the anger in me. And it will put me back to rights. And it will allow me to do what needs to be done in order to continue progressing along my path of healing my sexual and emotional abuse with gay men. And maybe finding a happy relationship. So you'll notice that there are a few things going on there. Maybe finding a happy relationship. I'm not doing this to find Prince Charming. I'm doing this to understand why gay dating is so fucking hard. And if at the end of this I decide that I do want Prince Charming or a boyfriend or whatever, and I don't know, I can't imagine Prince Charming is going to come out of this. But let's just say if at the end of this I want a boyfriend or a husband or something else, then I will be approaching it from the right perspective, not the wrong one. That's the reason I'm doing it. Find out what's wrong with gay society. Find out what's wrong with the way we hook up. Because, martial sex is not bad. Rutting around like beasts isn't bad. Romantic Venusian sex isn't bad. Like, the witch doesn't make a big to-do about any of these things. So on the face of them, none of them are bad. But the way that gay men are doing the martial sex and the hookup seems broken to me. And so I'm going to look at what it takes to fix that. And then, how do we transition from fixing that to fixing relationships? And I know that's a huge task, but I hope to be able to do that in 2019. And so that's what my New Year's resolution is about. It is not about finding my own Prince Charming, even though I really want to find my own Prince Charming. So let me tell you about my class, because in the November video, I told you that I would share what I was going through with you, and the class is such a huge part of what I'm going through in order to heal myself. So I started taking this course in mid-November, early December. And a lot of the beginning was just like sundry stuff, like setting up the class, instilling expectations, that kind of stuff. But around like the middle of January, we got to some hot and heavy stuff. And I was like, okay, this is really good. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to post these videos and I'm going to answer the questions from this class. Every time I have homework, I'm going to post a video answering the homework. So that's sort of what these videos are going to be. And we'll navigate how I feel about the homework and how I feel about the topic. And if I'm lucky, y'all chime in and leave comments. And we'll navigate how you feel about it too. So it'll be like you get free relationship coaching just by watching me fuck it up. Um, so anyway, let me start with the really cool information. One of the things the class taught me that I've known for a while, but I didn't put into words in my conscious mind until the class. One of the things the class taught me is that this in love feeling that everybody is desiring is really nothing more than a biological trick to make us evolve as a species. So, back during our caveman days, a man and a woman would have sex and have a baby, which would grossly handicap the woman from being able to do certain things that were necessary for her own survival and the survival of the infant. So, nature, being clever, also created this internal urge in the man and the woman to stay together for the exact length of time that it takes to raise the baby. So by the time the baby's walking, the woman is no longer as handicapped as she is when she has to carry the baby around with her. So generally that takes 2 to 3 years. So what happens is when the two people would have sex and produce this baby and fall in love with each other, they would both be encouraged to stick around. And these feelings, these chemicals would develop and would encourage them to just stay with each other and take care of each other and raise this baby. And these chemicals and endorphins lasted from 6 months to 3 years. At the very beginning of the decrease of the hormone influx, it would be 6 months. And depending on the people and their biological makeup, it could be completely gone anywhere from 2 to 3 years. So from 6 months to 2 or 3 years, the hormones were decreasing. And the natural mindsets were beginning to take back over. Well, as I was writing Garbed in Green, I came across this really interesting statistic that said, in general, gay male relationships last, on average, 6 months. Whereas straight relationships, on average, last 7 to 10 years. And lesbian relationships last the longest. But gay male relationships last only 6 months. So after hearing this in this relationship coaching class, I started to ask myself, what is up with this? And what I got was rather interesting. I think that gay men are just addicted to love, like we're addicted to drugs or alcohol or the party scene or any number of other things that gay men are addicted to because it's better than dealing with the bullshit of the mundane world. So gay men are really addicted to love. And once that 6 months happens and the first decline in the hormones goes away, they get a little panicky and a little itchy, and they start to go into this withdrawal mode, and they start to look at their partner and think terrible things about the person, and start looking around for other people, and start looking for other ways to reproduce the in-love drug feeling. And this is why, more often than not, gay relationships don't last, on average, more than 6 months. And I was like, this is genius. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to have to navigate that. Because I absolutely love that in-love feeling. I'm not really an addicted personality. Like, I can have a glass of wine and stop. I'm really not into drugs. I don't even really like marijuana. Now, I recognize all of its wonderful values. I don't have anything against it either. It's just not my taste. I think tastes like the earth farted in your mouth. So for me, it's really just not a thing I want to do. But I don't have any issue with it. Um, that said, I'm really not a person who is heavily addicted to things. And so realizing that I might be addicted to love in this capacity was kind of a mind fuck. And so I had to take some time and really think that stuff through. And I wasn't ready to make the video yet. So now, after I've thought it through, I've got some insight, which could be really lovely, at least for me. And if it helps you, great. And if it doesn't, I'm open to talking about it. So I started to ask myself, where did we fuck this up? Where did we put in love and the euphoria of the drug of being in love into relationships? And as I was doing some research, I figured out that it was the Renaissance. And it started with art. The artists of the Renaissance needed a way to depict these people are in love. And they created some of the most romantic concepts you have ever seen. And the general public bought in hook, line, and sinker. Then the Victorians bought in, and the pre-Raphaelites upped it a notch or two. And now, every single person alive today in the Western world is like, I'm not interested in a relationship that doesn't have romance. I deserve to be attracted to my partner. I deserve to be sexually interested in my partner. Romance is a thing. It is a necessary thing. I am entitled to it. And so we won't even consider having a relationship if the romantic sexual stuff isn't a part of it. But the truth is, that's only been around since the Renaissance. So I really struggled with that because for me, I agree with all of you. I don't want a relationship where I'm not sexually attracted or romantically interested in the person I'm dating. That seems futile today. But I can't deny the actual course of history where most people were not in relationships like we define them today. And really good relationships back then and today share so much in common. And this is where the class becomes really interesting because what they said was there's a difference between being in love and real love. In love is kind of imbalanced. You crave each other. It really is like a drug. You crave each other, right? And then you lose yourself to each other and you become dependent upon each other. And there's an obsession or a fixation on each other. It also leads to jealousy and fears of abandonment and other fears that come up. And it causes neediness and clinginess. Whereas real love, yeah, you go through the typical in love feeling because that's the beginning of every relationship and it's necessary, biologically speaking, to perpetuate the species. So you still get that. But at the end of it, you're supposed to find a more healthy balance. You're building a life together. You're living day in and day out with each other. You're not caught up in romantic ideals like Prince Charming or the glass slipper. You're caught up in what are the things that need to be done today. And this is exactly what was happening in relationships that were pre-Raphaelite, pre-Renaissance. The successful relationships were relationships that focused exclusively on making a life together work. And that did include sex. Despite the church's disdain of that, it did include sex, but it wasn't exclusively about sex. And so you go through a very different style of relationship after the in-love drug feeling wears off. It produces something a little bit more healthy and a little bit more sedate. It has both people looking at each other as individuals and being unique coming together as stronger individuals to create a unified whole, but not completing each other. It has both people accepting each other's imperfections and seeing beneath the surface of the reality to what's really happening in the relationship. It's talking about balance and being mutually supportive. There is dependency, but it is not codependent. It is a dependency built off of want, not a dependency built off of need. Like, for example, I hate math. My partner could do nothing better than love math because even though I can balance my checkbook, even though I can do all of the things that math requires me to do and life requires me to use math to do, I hate doing it. So if my partner would do it for me, it's not like I have to, he has to do it for me, but if he would do it for me, I'd be like a pig in shit. And so we can be dependent upon each other by want. But at the end of the day, both of us can survive without each other. I can still balance my checkbook and stomach having to do the math, but I don't want to. And maybe he does. And that makes us both better. So, in love versus real love is a very interesting and difficult concept to navigate. What makes it even more difficult is our desire for Prince Charming and this soulmate, which I gave up at New Year's. There is no such thing as one soulmate. There are many soulmates. You can have a soulmate in your family, you can have friends who are soulmates, you can even have the romantic kind of soulmate that everybody's talking about. If you remember, as you're caught up in this euphoria, the drug addiction of love, you can have this soulmate if you remember that there are other people who can fulfill that role for you as well. Because when the real love kicks in, you have to stay with each other because you want to, not because you're afraid you'll never find each other or anything like each other again, because that creates codependency. And so now I had to navigate all of these things, and I was a little unhappy about it. It took me a while to navigate them, but I did. And what I've come to is, I think at the end of the day, we can have what we want. You and me who are romantic. We can have what we want, but we're going to have to redefine it in a way that doesn't leave us wanting for something real. All right, so that is my little brief start to these videos. I will post more. They will be specifically about what's going on in my class and how I'm feeling about it and what my struggles are. Maybe what I'm going through on Grindr and Scruff and all of those things, although I'll be really nice to the people I talk to and not mention who they are. But yeah, thank you for supporting me and thank you for buying my book and following me on Facebook. I look forward to getting to know you better, and here's to a good 2019. Bye, y'all.